Welcome to True Crime Cases, where we delve into the darkest corners of human nature. Today's episode unravels a tale of two older women fight for 19-year-old ends in murder. In the sun-drenched city of Scottsdale, Arizona, where luxury homes and immaculate golf courses paint a picture of affluence and tranquility, a sinister tale of obsession, jealousy, and murder unfolded. The year was 2023, and the community was about to be rocked by a crime that would shatter its peaceful facade and leave residents questioning the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors. At the center of this tragic case were three individuals whose lives became fatally intertwined. Evelyn Hartley, a 62-year-old retired schoolteacher; Margaret Bloom, a 58-year-old real estate mogul; and the object of their shared obsession, 19-year-old Tyler Rodriguez, charismatic college student whose youth and charm would ultimately lead to his demise. Evelyn Hartley had lived in Scottsdale for over 3 decades. Her modest ranch-style home on East Monterey Way was a stark contrast to the opulent mansions that dominated the neighborhood. Widowed for the past 5 years, Evelyn filled her days volunteering at the local library and tending to her prized rose garden. To her neighbors, she was a kind-hearted woman with a gentle smile and a penchant for baking cookies for the neighborhood children. Little did they know that behind her grandmotherly exterior lurked a desperate loneliness, the growing obsession that would lead her down a dark path. Margaret Bloom, on the other hand, was a force to be reckoned with in Scottsdale's cutthroat real estate market. Her agency, Bloom Luxury Properties, was responsible for some of the most lucrative deals in the area. With her sleek blonde bob and designer suits, Margaret exuded confidence and success. She lived in a sprawling Mediterranean-style villa in the exclusive Silverleaf community, complete with a view of the McDowell Mountains. Divorced twice and childless, Margaret had built her life around her career, using her wealth and influence to get whatever she desired. But there was one thing her money couldn't buy: love. Tyler Rodriguez was a sophomore at Arizona State University, studying business with dreams of one day launching his own tech startup. With his tousled dark hair, warm brown eyes, and easy smile, Tyler turned heads wherever he went. He came from a working-class family in nearby Tempe, and his part-time job as a barista at the local Starbucks on North Scottsdale Road helped pay for his education. Tyler was known for his friendliness and his ability to make everyone feel special, a trait that would ultimately prove fatal. The paths of these three individuals first crossed on a warm September morning at the Starbucks where Tyler worked. Evelyn, feeling lonely and in need of human connection, had started frequenting the coffee shop daily. She would sit for hours, nursing a single latte, watching the world go by. It was during one of these visits that Tyler first caught her eye. His kind gesture of bringing her a fresh pastry on the house touched something deep within Evelyn's lonely heart. Margaret, too, had become a regular at the same Starbucks, drawn initially by convenience but soon by the handsome young barista who always remembered her complex coffee order. She found herself looking forward to her morning interactions with Tyler, feeling a spark of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. As the weeks passed, both women found themselves increasingly infatuated with Tyler. It would time their visits to coincide with his shifts, lingering longer than necessary, each convinced that Tyler's friendly demeanor held a special meaning for them alone. Tyler, unaware of the dangerous obsession he was fostering, continued to treat both women with the same warmth and kindness he showed all his customers. The situation took a dark turn when Evelyn, emboldened by what she perceived as Tyler's reciprocated interest, decided to ask him out. She spent hours preparing, choosing her best dress and applying makeup, trembling hand. Her heart soared when Tyler agreed to meet her for coffee on his day off, not realizing that Tyler saw this as nothing more than a kind gesture towards a lonely older woman. Unfortunately, Margaret had chosen the same day to make her move. Dressed in a revealing outfit that belied her age, she arrived at the coffee shop to find Tyler and Evelyn deep in conversation. The sight of them together ignited a fierce jealousy in Margaret. She stormed over to their table, barely containing her rage. What followed was a tense and awkward confrontation. Both women staked their claim on Tyler, who sat bewildered and uncomfortable between them. Tyler tried to defuse the situation, explaining that he saw them both as nothing more than friendly customers. His words fell on deaf ears as the two women hurled accusations and insults at each other, their voices rising and drawing the attention of other patrons. Embarrassed and overwhelmed, Tyler excused himself and left the coffee shop, leaving Evelyn and Margaret glaring at each other with undisguised hatred. From that moment, their shared obsession with Tyler transformed into a bitter rivalry, each determined to win his affections at any cost. Over the next few months, the situation escalated. Evelyn and Margaret began showing up at Tyler's classes, his apartment, and even his parents' home in Tempe. They sent him expensive gifts, love letters, and increasingly desperate messages. Tyler, frightened by their behavior, tried to distance himself. He switched his work schedule, changed his routines, and even considered transferring to another university. The community of Scottsdale began to take notice of the strange behavior of these two respected women. Neighbors whispered about Evelyn's sudden makeover and Margaret's erratic business decision. Friends tried to intervene, but both women were too far gone in their delusions to listen to reason. As Halloween approached, the tension reached the breaking point. Tyler had planned to attend a costume party at a friend's house, hoping for a night of normalcy away from his stalker. However, both Evelyn and Margaret had learned of the party through their relentless surveillance. On the night of October 31st, 2023, as costumed revelers filled the streets of Scottsdale, tragedy was unfolding in a quiet cul-de-sac. Tyler, dressed as a superhero, was about to leave for the party when he heard a commotion outside his apartment. To his horror, he saw Evelyn and Margaret engaged in a physical altercation on his front lawn. Evelyn, her gray hair wild and her eyes blazing with fury, was wielding a garden trowel she had brought from home. Margaret, her designer dress torn and her mascara smeared, had armed herself with a stiletto heel. The two women circled each other, hurling insults and threats, each accusing the other of trying to steal Tyler's love. Tyler, desperate to stop the fight, brushed outside. As he approached, Evelyn swung the trowel, intending to strike Margaret. In a terrible twist of fate, Tyler stepped between them at that exact moment. The sharp edge of the trowel caught him in the throat, slicing through his carotid artery. Blood spurted from Tyler's neck as he collapsed to the ground. The sight of Tyler bleeding snapped both women out of their frenzy. They stood frozen in shock as the life drained from the young man they had professed to love. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, called 911, but by the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Tyler Rodriguez was pronounced dead at the scene, his superhero costume stained crimson. Brutal reminder of the senseless tragedy. The aftermath of Tyler's death sent shockwaves through Scottsdale. Community struggled to reconcile the image of Evelyn, the kindly retired teacher, and Margaret, the successful businesswoman, with the deranged individuals who had caused the death of an innocent young man. Both women were arrested at the scene, still covered in Tyler's blood. As they were led away in handcuffs, the reality of what they had done began to sink in. Evelyn's face crumpled in anguish, while Margaret maintained a mask of stunned disbelief. The legal proceedings that followed were a media sensation. Journalists from across the country descended on Scottsdale, eager to report on the salacious details of the case. The case of two older women fighting over a college student, leading to his tragic death, captured the public's imagination and sparked debates about obsession, mental health, and the dark side of unrequited love. During the trial, the full extent of Evelyn and Margaret's obsession came to light. Investigators discovered shrine-like areas in both women's homes, filled with photos of Tyler, receipts from his workplace, and even stolen items of his clothing. Their computers revealed countless hours spent stalking Tyler's social media accounts and researching his daily routines. Psychologists testified about the deep-seated loneliness and insecurity that had driven both women to fixate on Tyler. Evelyn, they suggested, had transferred her maternal instincts onto Tyler, seeing him as a replacement for the children she never had. Margaret, in contrast, had viewed Tyler as a trophy, a way to prove that she could still attract a young, handsome man. Tyler's family sat stoically through the trial, their grief palpable to all in the courtroom. His mother's tearful testimony about her son's kind nature and his dreams for the future left many jurors visibly moved. She spoke of Tyler's growing fear in the weeks leading up to his death, and his reluctance to seek help out of concern for Evelyn and Margaret's reputations. As the trial progressed, a clearer picture emerged of the events leading up to that fatal Halloween night. Both women had separately decided to confront Tyler at his home, each hoping to persuade him to choose her. Their unexpected encounter outside his apartment had quickly escalated into violence, fueled by months of jealousy and obsession. The defense attorneys for both women attempted to shift blame onto the other, arguing that their clients had been provoked into action by their rivals' behavior. However, the prosecution painted a damning picture of two individuals whose unchecked obsession had robbed a young man of his life. After weeks of testimony, the jury found both Evelyn Hartley and Margaret Bloom guilty of manslaughter. The judge, in his sentencing statement, spoke of the tragedy of 3 lives destroyed by obsession and the failure of the community to recognize and address the women's deteriorating mental state. Evelyn was sentenced to 15 years in prison, her advanced age and previous good character taken into account. As she was led from the courtroom, she appeared frail and confused, a shadow of the respected teacher she had once been. Margaret received a harsher sentence of 25 years, her attempts to use her wealth and influence to sway the proceedings having backfired spectacularly. The sentencing brought little comfort to Tyler's family or the community of Scottsdale. The senseless loss of a young life weighed heavily on everyone involved. In the months that followed, Scottsdale struggled to come to terms with the tragedy that had unfolded in their midst. The Starbucks where Tyler had worked became an impromptu memorial, with customers leaving flowers and notes in his memory. Arizona State University established a scholarship in Tyler's name, aimed at supporting students who demonstrate the same kindness and community spirit that had made Tyler so beloved. As time passed, the case of Tyler Rodriguez and the 2 women who caused his death became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the dangers of obsession and the importance of mental health awareness. Community leaders in Scottsdale implemented new programs aimed at combating loneliness among older residents and encouraging early intervention in cases of stalking and harassment. For Evelyn and Margaret, life behind bars was a harsh adjustment. Evelyn retreated into herself, rarely speaking to other inmates or participating in prison program. Margaret, stripped of her wealth and status, struggled to cope with her new reality. Both women were haunted by the memory of Tyler and the knowledge that their actions had snuffed out a promising young life. Tyler's parents, determined that their son's death would not be in vain, became advocates for stalking awareness and victims' rights. They spoke at schools and community centers, sharing Tyler's case in the hope of preventing similar tragedies. As years passed, the city of Scottsdale slowly healed. The scars remained. The case of Tyler Rodriguez became a part of local lore, a dark chapter in the history of a city known for its sunshine and luxury. It served as a reminder that beneath the surface of even the most picturesque communities, hidden obsessions and desperate loneliness can lead to unthinkable consequences. The tragedy prompted soul-searching among Scottsdale residents. Many questioned how they could have been blind to the suffering and instability of their neighbors. The case sparked conversations about the isolation often faced by older single women in a society that values youth and romantic partnerships. In the wake of the trial, local psychologists and mental health experts weighed in on the case, offering insights into the minds of Evelyn and Margaret. Dr. Sarah Chen, a prominent psychologist in Scottsdale, explained that both women likely suffered from erotomania, a delusional disorder characterized by the false belief that another person is in love with them. This case highlights the dangers of untreated mental health issues. Dr. Chen stated in an interview with the Arizona Republic, "What began as loneliness and a desire for connection spiraled into a dangerous obsession, ultimately led to tragedy." The case also shed light on the issue of stalking and its devastating effects on victims. Tyler's friends and classmates came forward with stories of his increasing anxiety and fear in the weeks leading up to his death. Many expressed guilt for not recognizing the severity of the situation or taking action to help their friend. Local law enforcement faced criticism for their handling of the case. It was revealed that Tyler had filed a complaint about the women's behavior 2 weeks before his death, but it had not been taken seriously due to the women's respected status in the community. This revelation led to a review of police procedures and increased training on recognizing and responding to stalking cases. Tragedy had far-reaching effects on the Scottsdale community. The real estate market, which Margaret Bloom had once dominated, experienced a temporary downturn as potential buyers were spooked by the association with the crime. Bloom Luxury Properties, now under new management, struggled to distance itself from its disgraced founder. Evelyn's former students and colleagues at the school where she had taught for decades were left grappling with conflicting emotion. Many found it difficult to reconcile the caring teacher they had known with the woman capable of such a horrific act. The school board organized counseling sessions for staff and students to help them process their feelings and understand the complexities of mental health. The case also sparked a national conversation about ageism and the societal pressures faced by older women. Social media platforms were flooded with discussions about the lack of support and resources for individuals struggling with loneliness and isolation in their later years. Some commentators argued that society's obsession with youth and beauty had contributed to Evelyn and Margaret's desperate actions. In the years following the tragedy, Scottsdale saw a surge in community initiatives aimed at fostering connections among residents of all ages. Senior centers expanded their programs, offering more opportunities for social interaction and personal growth. Intergenerational mentoring programs were established, pairing older adults with young people for mutual support and learning. The case had a profound impact on the local Starbucks where Tyler had worked. The company implemented new training protocols for employees on recognizing and reporting concerning customer behavior. The store where the fateful encounters had taken place became a symbol of the tragedy, with many customers avoiding it out of respect for Tyler's memory. Tyler's family struggled to move forward in the aftermath of his death. His parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, found solace in their advocacy work, but faced daily reminders of their loss. Tyler's younger sister, Sophia, who had looked up to her brother, struggled with survivor's guilt and anger. The Rodriguez family eventually moved away from Tempe, unable to bear the constant reminders of Tyler in their hometown. As the years passed, the case continued to fascinate true crime enthusiasts and psychologists alike. Books were written, documentaries were made, and countless articles analyzed every aspect of the tragedy. The case of Evelyn, Margaret, and Tyler became a cautionary tale, used in criminology classes and psychology seminars to illustrate the dangers of obsession and the importance of mental health awareness. In prison, Evelyn and Margaret's lives took drastically different turns. Evelyn, her health declining rapidly, became a model prisoner. She spent her days in the prison library, helping other inmates improve their literacy skills. Many saw this as an attempt at redemption, a way to honor Tyler's memory by helping others as he had once helped her. Margaret, on the other hand, struggled to adjust to life behind bars. Used to a life of luxury and control, she found herself at the bottom of the prison hierarchy. Her attempts to manipulate other inmates and guards backfired, leaving her isolated and bitter. She maintained her innocence, insisting that Evelyn was solely responsible for Tyler's death. 5 years after the tragedy, a twist in the case emerged. Former employee of Bloom Luxury Properties came forward with evidence suggesting that Margaret had a history of obsessive behavior towards young men. This revelation led to a review of Margaret's past, uncovering a pattern of inappropriate relationships and stalking incidents that had been covered up by her wealth and influence. This new information reignited public interest in the case. Legal experts debated whether this evidence, had it been available during the trial, would have resulted in a harsher sentence for Margaret. Tyler's family pushed for a review of the case, hoping for some form of additional justice for their son. The 10th anniversary of Tyler's death was marked by a somber memorial service in Scottsdale. Community came together to remember the young man whose life had been cut tragically short. Speakers at the event included Tyler's family, former classmates, and community leaders who had been impacted by the case. During the memorial, Maria Rodriguez, Tyler's mother, gave a moving speech about the lasting impact of her son's death. "Many years have passed, but the pain of losing Tyler remains as fresh as ever," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "However, we find solace in knowing that his case has brought about positive changes in our community and beyond. Tyler's kindness and spirit live on through the lives he's touched and the awareness his tragic death has raised." The memorial also served as a platform to launch a new initiative called Tyler's Legacy, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating young people about the dangers of stalking and obsessive behavior. The organization aimed to provide resources for victims and promote early intervention in potentially dangerous situations. As the years passed, the case continued to evolve in unexpected ways. 15 years after Tyler's death, a true crime podcast series titled Obsession in Scottsdale brought renewed attention to the case. Podcast, which featured interviews with investigators, psychologists, and even former inmates who had interacted with Evelyn and Margaret in prison, became an overnight sensation. The podcast's popularity led to a resurgence of interest in the case, many calling for a re-examination of the events leading up to Tyler's death. Amateur sleuths and internet detectives pored over the details of the case, uncovering new information and raising questions about aspects of the investigation that had previously gone unnoticed. One of the most significant revelations came from a former colleague of Margaret Bloom, who claimed that Margaret had confided in her about a traumatic event from her past. According to this source, Margaret had experienced a devastating rejection in her youth that had profoundly affected her ability to form healthy relationships. This information shed new light on Margaret's motivations and sparked debates about the role of past trauma in criminal behavior. Podcast also delved into Evelyn's background, revealing a history of undiagnosed mental health issues that had been exacerbated by the isolation of her widowhood. Friends and family members who had previously remained silent came forward to share their observations of Evelyn's declining mental state in the months leading up to the tragedy. As public interest in the case grew, so did the pressure on the Arizona Department of Corrections to provide updates on Evelyn and Margaret's status. It was revealed that Evelyn, now in her late 70s, had been diagnosed with early-stage dementia and had been transferred to a medical unit within the prison. Margaret, on the other hand, had become a vocal advocate for prison reform, using her business acumen to propose improvements to the correctional system. The renewed attention to the case also brought about unexpected consequences for the community of Scottsdale. The city, which had worked hard to move past the tragedy, found itself once again in the national spotlight. Local businesses reported an influx of true crime tourists, eager to visit the locations associated with the case. This morbid tourism brought mixed feelings among residents, with some appreciating the economic boost, and others feeling that it disrespected Tyler's memory. 20 years after Tyler's death, a groundbreaking study was published in the Journal of Forensic Psychology, using the Scottsdale case as a central example in examining the intersection of age, gender, and criminal behavior. The study's findings challenged many preconceptions about older female offenders and highlighted the need for more nuanced approaches to understanding and preventing such crime. The study also explored the long-term effects of the tragedy on the Scottsdale community. Researchers found that the case had led to significant changes in local attitudes towards mental health, with increased support for community-based mental health services and a greater willingness to intervene when individuals showed signs of concerning behavior. As the 25th anniversary of Tyler's death approached, the Rodriguez family made the difficult decision to write a book about their experience. Titled Our Son Tyler, Case of Love, Loss, and Legacy, the book offered an intimate look at Tyler's life and the devastating impact of his death on his family and community. The book became a bestseller, critics praising its honest portrayal of grief and resilience. The book's release coincided with a major development in the case. New DNA analysis techniques, not available at the time of the original investigation, were used to re-examine evidence from the crime scene. The results confirmed Evelyn as the person who had struck the fatal blow but also revealed traces of Margaret's DNA on Tyler's clothing, suggesting she had been in physical contact with him shortly before his death. This new evidence led to heated debates about the possibility of reopening the case. Legal experts argued over whether the new findings warranted a retrial, while others maintained that justice had already been served. The controversy highlighted the ongoing challenges in balancing justice, closure, and the relentless march of technological progress in forensic science. As the case continued to captivate public interest, it also sparked important conversations about societal attitudes towards aging, loneliness, and mental health. Social psychologists pointed to the Scottsdale tragedy as a stark example of the potentially devastating consequences of social isolation and untreated mental health issues among older adults. In response to these discussions, several states implemented new programs aimed at supporting older adults and preventing social isolation. These initiatives included community outreach programs, mental health screenings, and intergenerational mentoring schemes designed to foster connections between older and younger community members. The case also had a lasting impact on the legal system. Several states revised their stalking laws, introducing more comprehensive definitions and stricter penalty. The Tyler Rodriguez Act, passed in Arizona, mandated improved training for law enforcement officers in recognizing and responding to stalking behaviors, particularly those involving older perpetrators. As the years passed, the Scottsdale community found ways to honor Tyler's memory while also moving forward. The Starbucks where he had worked was eventually torn down and replaced with a community center named after Tyler. The center offered a range of programs for all ages, with a particular focus on mental health support and community building. 30 years after the tragedy, Scottsdale had transformed in many ways. The city had become known for its progressive approach to mental health and community welfare, with the Tyler Rodriguez case serving as a catalyst for positive change. However, for those who had lived through the events of that fateful Halloween night, the memories remained vivid and painful. In a twist of fate, both Evelyn and Margaret passed away within months of each other, just as the 30th anniversary of Tyler's death approached. Evelyn, who had spent her final years in a prison medical facility, died peacefully in her sleep. Margaret, who had been granted compassionate release due to terminal illness, passed away shortly after returning to Scottsdale. Their deaths brought a sense of finality to the case that had captivated the nation for 3 decades. Media outlets ran retrospectives on the case, examining its lasting impact on Scottsdale and beyond. Criminologists and psychologists continued to study the case, using it as a teaching tool to illustrate the complex factors that can lead seemingly ordinary individuals to commit extraordinary crimes. As the case of Tyler Rodriguez, Evelyn Hartley, and Margaret Bloom faded into history, its lessons remained relevant. The case served as a poignant reminder of the importance of mental health awareness, the dangers of unchecked obsession, and the profound impact that one life can have on an entire community. In the end, the legacy of the Scottsdale tragedy was not just one of sorrow and loss, but also of resilience, reform, and the enduring human capacity for growth and change. Tyler's short life and tragic death had sparked a movement that would continue to shape lives and communities for generations to come. The case of the 2 older women who fought for a 19-year-old, ending in murder, would forever be etched in the annals of Scottsdale's history. It stood as a grim testament to the darkness that can lurk behind the sun-soaked facades of even the most seemingly perfect places, and the vital importance of compassion, awareness, and community in preventing such heartbreaking losses in the future. The Scottsdale moved forward. The memory of Tyler Rodriguez and the tragic circumstances of his death remained a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the profound impact our actions can have on others. The city's residents learned to look beyond appearances, to reach out to their neighbors, and to recognize the signs of obsession and mental distress before they escalate into tragedy. The case of Evelyn Hartley and Margaret Bloom serves as a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked obsession and the importance of addressing mental health issues at all stages of life. It reminds us that behind every sensational headline lies a complex web of human emotions, societal pressures, and individual choices. As we reflect on this tragic tale, we are challenged to create more compassionate communities, to reach out to those who may be struggling, and to never underestimate the power of human connection in preventing such devastating losses. In the final analysis, the Scottsdale tragedy teaches us that no one is immune to the basic human needs for love, acceptance, and belonging. It urges us to approach others with empathy and understanding, to seek help when we need it, and to create a society where no one feels so desperate and alone that they would resort to such destructive behavior. As we remember Tyler Rodriguez and the lives forever changed by his untimely death, we are reminded of our shared responsibility, care for one another, and to build communities where such tragedies become increasingly rare.